Hey everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. This is my second video. So yeah, welcome back to everybody who's coming back and everybody watching for the first time. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So today I'm going to be talking about how I got my first job. Yeah, there's not too much drama, but every journey is different. So I actually applied. I applied for my work in when I was doing my final year at varsity. So I believe one of the best times to apply for a job, especially if you don't have a bursary or the bursary you're using won't provide you with employment after you're done with your studies, is to apply during your final year of study. So that is what I did in my final year of study back in, I think it was May, around May, June. I applied for my first job. And for confidentiality's sake, I won't mention the company's name. I'll just say Company A. So I applied for Company A back during that time. I think June, it was either June or May. Yeah, I'm not certain, but between the two. So how I went about the process. So I firstly just went to Google. Google is your best friend. I went to Google and I just checked civil engineering companies that are hiring. And I saw that, a lot of things were not really relating. So I was just like, okay, graduate programs. I just Googled graduate programs and there were a few that came up. Some were already closed. Some were already closed back in March. I think I checked Rainwater. There was one on Rainwater, but it was already closed. So I was just left with two companies that were open. So I applied for those two companies, Company A and Company B. By that time, I always knew about Company B. I wish I can say their name, but okay. So I always knew about Company B, but I didn't know about Company A. I only found out about Company A that year, early that year. So in my final year, that's when I found out about Company A. And I remember I was just so fascinated. Like they were just so perfect. And I remember thinking to myself, what if this is a made up company, like those companies that are there, what do they call them again? I think fly by night, something along those lines. Like they are there but they are not there. So I thought that company was like that because it was just too good to be true. The things they were saying about their values as a company, I was just so impressed. And I remember I just so related with everything they were saying. I was like, what, this is the company for me. And I remember being a faith person. I mean, I believe that you must, your words must work for you. Honestly, you have to speak, like you need to, you shouldn't speak down on yourself. You shouldn't speak against yourself. You must always, your words must be ahead of where you are currently. So I remember I was like, you know what, this company, I'm writing this name down and I'm going to pray. I'm going to thank God in advance that I work in this company. So I wrote my list. I wrote Company A there. Every day I'll just pray. I'll be like, thank you, God. I'm employed at Company A and I'm enjoying it. So I put that there. But then Company B was like that company. Everybody in my class wanted to work for that company. It was just like an amazing company. They often came to the university. So everybody knew that company. Everybody loved that company. I was like, okay, I like it too, pretty much. So I applied for both of them. And I remember it was during, I, I think it was June holidays. No, I think it was recess. It was the first recess. And I remember because I was at home and then I had an email that I was having my first interview. Like I'm trying to remember, guys, the exact dates. Like I'm trying, oh, it was study break. I think it was study break before exams, the June exams. It was study break before the June exams. So they sent me an email saying I have interviews, I think next week. So I'm having exams. So it was a study week for exams. Next week I was having my exam. And I think my interview was the other week in 2 weeks' time. Yo, I remember I was like, what? From Company A. This was Company A replying saying I have an interview. And then I remember, it was my very first interview. So I Googled what type of questions do they ask at interviews. By then, I was not really that advanced. So I didn't check out YouTube. I just, I was like, okay, types of questions they asked. I asked a couple of friends. They told me they're going to ask you, tell us about yourself, blah, blah, blah. So, I took all those questions. I wrote down my answers. I practiced. And then my first interview was actually at VETS. No, it was at UJDFC. It was UJDFC. So I took a mega bus. I went to UJDFC. And it was my first time at was it? No, it was my first time in a mega bus by myself. It was my first time in a mega bus by myself. So I went there and I remember meeting one of my classmates there also. I was like, what? You actually also know about this company. And that girl, I think she's the one that sort of confirmed to me that, yeah, this company is actually a legit company. I was like, oh, that was like the first time I was like, oh, okay, this company is real based on what that lady said. So I went to the interview, and honestly, guys, when I left that interview, I was fully convinced that if they reject me, at least they rejected the real me. Because I was super honest in that interview. I laid all my cards down, I wore my hat on my sleeve. So yeah, like I said, I wore my heart on my sleeve. I poured my heart out. And I think it's because in my mind I was thinking it's just one interview and then they're gonna call me and say you are employed or not employed. So you know what? I only knew about one interviews. So I just laid it all down. I was just, I gave it my 110%. And I remember I remember they were like, tell us about yourself. That was the first, it was actually two ladies. So I was so glad. I was like, yeah, thank God it's ladies. So those ladies were like, tell us about yourself. And, I didn't know that when they say that, you know how there's always the perfect answer? I saw later when I got home, when I went to YouTube, that when people answer these questions, they normally speak in alignment with the role they're applying for. So yeah, if it's engineering, you'll describe yourself in a sense that is aligning to engineering. Like, I love buildings. I was once part of I don't know, a road building roads with a paper or with sticks back in crash or kindergarten, stuff like that. So I saw that YouTube, that's ideally the answer people like they advise people to give when they're asked this question. So for me, since I didn't check out YouTube, I mean, I spoke about my family. I spoke about how many we are at home. Yeah, so I basically told them where I grew up, how many we are. So I just spoke about me. I didn't, nothing engineering related. And I remember those ladies, yo guys, their faces were very friendly. Because, and before I went to the interview, obviously I prayed. I asked God for the best people to be interviewing me, kind people. So I had prayed already. So when I got there, I was confident that God has got me. So I answered those questions, and those ladies, I remember their faces were so, so friendly. They were just so welcoming. And yeah, the interview went great. So when they asked me about me, I told them. And then I remember I even told them that I speak Kilovedu at home. And I remember they're like, what? That's our first time hearing about that language. And then I sort of gave them a small background. I tried. So I gave them a small background on the language. And yeah, guys, I passed my first interview, and I remember because for me, I thought that was the only interview. So they called me later. They're like, "Okay, you went through. Now it's time for your second interview." I was like, "Second interview?" So yeah, and then I went for my second interview, and it was a psychometrics test interview. So there, they basically test your abilities, your reasoning abilities, mathematics abilities, and also your personality. So yeah, they basically check to see if you are the best candidate, if you'll succeed in the specific role that you're applying for. So I went to do those tests. That was my second interview. That one was at Wits. I remember it was at Wits. I went for my psychometric test, and I remember when I was doing my psychometric test, that's when company B um, was holding their very first interviews. And I remember their interview were at their offices, which were in Pretoria. So I had to yeah, that's a story for another day. So company B had interviews at their office, and I had to prepare presentation slides. There was gonna be a presentation, and I remember, they sent us a template of PowerPoint, so you had to do a presentation using those slides. So they were customized to match the company's standards or format. So yeah, so I did my psychometric test for company A, And I was done with it. They sent me a reply that I've been approved. I'm going to the third interview. So now, guys, you can imagine all these interviews. I'm having my exams. It's a busy time. I didn't even want to be thinking about interviews. And my second interview was actually after my exams, so we're back at school now. And I remember I just felt so overwhelmed. I was like, all these interviews, I have to study, I have to do my practicals, I need to be studying for my tutorials. Here I'm busy, I have interviews. It was just so much. I felt like it was overwhelming. It was too much. At some point I was like, God, if I don't go to these interviews, will I be wrong? Will I be wrong? Because it was just, when you have to do something next week, by the time this week you're overloaded. So it sort of felt like, isn't there another time to be applying for jobs other than now? So I felt that way, but then, I pushed myself. I went to my first interview with Company B. And I remember, guys, it was a boardroom. It was in a boardroom. It was like 6 people, if not 7. It was like a oval oval table, and there were like 6 to 7 people. There was a screen there, yeah, for my presentation. And I remember the guys that they actually looked friendly. They were friendly. And I also had 3 of my classmates, no, four of my classmates were going. So yeah, but we met there since our interviews were at different time slots. So we met there, and yeah, it was nice seeing my classmates. I was like, I wish I get to work with these guys. It will be more it will be very, I don't know, comforting to know that there are people that you were at school with that are here. So yeah, I was very happy that my classmates were there. So I went through my first interview. It was very nice. I did my presentation. I was very confident. I remember before I got there, I had prayed to God. So I felt like a David. Literally, I felt like a David. I was very bold, courageous. I did my interview, and then I passed my first interview, and then they were saying that the second interviews, and they called me for the second. For that Company B, it was only 2 interviews, so they called me for the final one. The final one, when I went to the final one for Company B, it was also in a boardroom, and there was a lady on Skype. So there was an additional person on Skype, and I think it was 5 people again, different races, different gender, and it was more career based because they asked me about career, why civil engineering. They asked me about my final year project. They asked me about what am I bringing to the table, to the company. What am I bringing to the company? And I remember the lady on Skype, guys, she was mean. Like, and I remember thinking to myself, why would you be mean? We are all adults. Like, why would you be mean to somebody who's on an interview, knowing very well how interviews are? It's not like, we are at school or varsity where you can put pressure on somebody. I really didn't understand why she was the way she was. She was so mean. And she was like, the questions she was asking, it was like attacks. They were like attacks. I didn't know why. And I was just like, maybe it's because she's behind the camera, she's not there face to face. So she has, I don't know, a mean streak. She was just so mean, and her questions felt like attacks. She was asking, insisting I tell her about my final year project, the final results. And I'm like, I'm currently in the process of doing my final year project. I don't have my thesis, in other words, I don't have the final results. But then I do. So I told her how I think the results will be. And it's like she wanted me to give her. I don't know what she wanted, but she kept insisting on my final year thesis. And I was just like, lady, I tried to give her answers as best as I could because by then I was not done. I felt like she was very mean. And after that interview, I was happy with my overall answers. And I remember there was a question they asked me about, will I mind working? Because I told them how passionate I am about, changing South Africa. And so they were like, would you be bothered if most of your work is not South African projects, but projects from, I think it was New Zealand. Yeah, from New Zealand, because most of their projects were from New Zealand. So I remember I was like, yeah, I wouldn't mind. But it was not 100% in my heart. Obviously, South Africa comes first. I'm patriotic. I'm a patriot. So yeah, I was not 100%. And then when I went home, I remember I was just like, that interview, it went well, but I was not that happy. And then with Company B, I went for my third interview. It was at Company A, my very first, I went to their offices for my third interview. It was, how many people were they? I think it was 4 people. It was 4 people. It was 2 ladies. It was 3 ladies and 1 guy. It was nice, but one question that I messed up, because I remember they told me, where do I see myself in 5 years' time if they were to employ me? And I said I would be their boss. I said I would be their boss, guys. Yeah. Yo, I regretted that answer when I got home. I was like, what? And then when I went to Google, I saw there was this other article. They were saying that's something not to say. Never say in 5 years' time you will be their boss. Or you'll be the boss of the company or the owner of the company. So so yeah, but long story short, I got employed with company A, and my friends, that my classmates, got employed with company B. Two of them, one didn't, because we were four. So two got employed with company B. One got rejected, and yeah, I also got rejected with company B, but I got company A. And I remember when I went back to my prayer list, I saw company A there, and I was like, wow, God is faithful. So yeah, that's my journey on how I got my first job. And just a free advice to those of you who are applying: don't give up. Just because they said no doesn't mean you are not qualified for that position. It doesn't mean now you are not an engineer. It doesn't mean you are not, I don't know, it doesn't mean you are not capable. You are. You just went for that company, and that company is not the only company. You didn't lose them, they lost you. So yeah, if they reject you, it's their loss, it's not yours. You just keep looking for other opportunities, and you don't give up, and you pray, you speak in accordance, you speak in accordance with what you want to see. So don't speak against yourself, don't speak against your CV, speak ahead of it, speak ahead of it rather. So just, you know, be positive, and just know that God will always have your back. If you are his child, he will always have your back. And yeah.